terms of how stories are constructed, and sometimes content as well. I mean, just to give you an example, with the co-author, my lovely co-author Anna Soberon, and it's called The Moon is in the River, and it's for very young children, and the sheep sees the moon in the river, and he says, I'm going to get a boat. And the sheep walks and walks and walks, and along comes a duck. Can I come with you? You know, yes. The sheep and the duck walk and walk. Poor moon, poor moon. And it's a repetitive, cumulative pattern that is
quite frequent in children's stories.
That is very common, especially in books for young children, you know, the kind of brown bear, dear Zoo, you know, those kind of books.
Yes.
That kind of pattern. So I was very aware of borrowing from that.
Absolutely. Yes. And this built up as part of your stories career in young children's English language education over a long period. But what sparked this? What sparked? Why a picture book now? What's the motivation behind writing this book?
I've always wanted to write a picture book. I guess, you know, the constraints of stories that are in course books are, you know, they're very real constraints. You've got to have a certain number of words in the frame, and there's not room for
as you described,
the illustration. Yeah. And the illustrations are very much driven by the text and the words, rather than, you know, an interdependent and integrated feature as they are here or in any of the lovely books. So, and picture books themselves, I've used for years in my own teaching, and it's just that kind of natural exposure to rich language, the engagement that you get when children become involved in reading a picture book. And I love that metaphor that's used by, what's her name, Sims Bishop. She talks about picture books being windows, mirrors and sliding doors. And that's just so beautiful, you know, that they are windows onto another world, cultural diversity, difference, things that, you know, you haven't kind of seen before. They're mirrors in the sense that you see, you know, issues or identities that you relate to, you're reflected, and sliding doors in the way that the story welcomes you in to an imaginative world that, you know, that feeds your thinking processes and that you can, you know, relate to in your daily life. It's a beautiful metaphor, isn't it?
It's a beautiful description.
And the other thing I think about picture books that I would say, I mean, it's true with course book stories as well, but I think with picture book, that every child can achieve and be successful at whatever level they're at. I mean, we all know all our groups, you know, they may have had entrance tests or whatever, but they're all heterogeneous, you know, they're all multi-level. And actually when you work with a picture book, by the end of your, however many lessons you're doing on it, you know that some children will probably know the whole story off by heart. And other children may be able to just join in with the kind of, some of the repetition of the story. But everyone's being successful, and I think that's one of the marvellous things about it. I mean, another thing more pragmatically about writing a picture book, I mean, I've obviously seen over the many decades that you talked about, the way that ELT has been changing with young children, and there certainly is a trend and development these days to actually use books like this and organise learning around picture books and have a picture book based programme. And one of the things about picture books is that they often touch on themes that maybe aren't touched on in course books. Social and emotional learning, issues to do with immigration, war, refugee, environmental, the environment, climate change, things like that, but where the language is difficult. And I felt there was room for something that is not following an ELT syllabus or anything remotely like that, but is actually, written in a way that is accessible and comprehensible and opens windows, if you like, onto issues that are really, really important.
Absolutely. You talked a little bit about the process of writing the picture book, and you obviously mentioned you're one of the illustrator, and you've got it back in there, and how it was a collaborative process. But can you tell us a bit more about what made writing a picture book different from the other stories that you've written?
Yes. I mean, I guess the first major thing in terms of, my background as a course book writer was not to have any kind of syllabus constraints, which, like it or not, with a course book, even though, it's story-led, that at the end of the day, there's also a linguistic syllabus underpinning it. That's not to say that there isn't some language control, and I've had, since embarking on all this, I had very interesting discussions with people who are in editing books, UK picture books, and they talk about, yes, of course there is language control, but it's obviously not quite as rigid. So I think, that was definitely one of the main things. I think another difference, which is really crucial, and this is where it's so lovely to have Giselle here, is the fact picture book is one word. The way, people who know about and love and talk about picture book, even though your word spell checker will keep telling you you've got it wrong. And that is because of the integration and interdependence of the pictures and the words, and the way the construction of meaning is brought about by both of those kind of working in harmony with each other. And actually, and this, because I thought there might be a moment just to share with you, and I didn't want to misquote, and this is a wonderful definition of a picture book by Barbara Bader. And what she says, a picture book is text, illustrations, total design, an item of manufacture and a commercial product, a social, cultural, historic document, and foremost, an experience for the child. As an art form, it hinges on the interdependence of pictures and words, on the simultaneous display of two facing pages, and on the drama of turning the page.
Fascinating.
On its own terms, its possibilities are limitless.
That's wonderful.
And at that quote, it's years old, said 1978, but it's still valid. And I think it's that interdependence and integration of text and illustration that works in different ways. In many picture books, and probably very often the ones we use in our ELT classes, the illustrations are a reflection of the text, and that's certainly the case here, for example. The first kind of really basic thing, it's so obvious, but it does need saying, is to get that initial engagement, curiosity, interest, the spark. And to do that, I mean, you can use the book itself, the cover, some of the very often the blurb on the back of the book has text that is good to ask us questions, to get them predicting. You might show this without the title, and say,
that's fun. Yes, what's the story?
This is Shelley. Is she happy or sad? Why is she sad, do you think? That kind of
I have to say, there's a very engaging Sally Shark. We've had the picture in the window for a while now in the run-up to the event, and we've had families come in directly saying we want the shark book.
That is all thanks to Giselle, because yes, it's a wonderful, wonderful image of Shelley on the cover.
Absolutely, yes, great.
Yeah. The next thing is how you read the story,
Mm.
and I think the important thing here is to remember that there's actually no one way of reading a story. That there are as many ways of reading stories as there are teachers or parents. You know, people sometimes some people do it in a great, you know, extrovert, exaggerated way. Other people in a very quiet way, and that's, you know, anyway, the way that works for you is the way that works. But I guess we have to always think about our body language, our position, our gestures, our facial expressions. That's hugely important. Eyes, you know, I'm saying the obvious here, so please forgive me, those of you who are teachers and just know all this kind of stuff backwards, but to keep people engaged, you know, you need to have that kind of eye contact. And then, of course, your voice, everything that you can do with your voice in terms of volume, pacing, pausing, all of those things. Those are absolutely crucial. The other thing I think we have to remember is that children in an educational context, in a school context, actually respond rather differently to picture books than they do when they're at home.
Mm.
And when they're at home, you know, they love a picture book, they may go again, you know, they want it again. But actually, once they're in the school context, actually, they're very quick. I notice this even with little ones, 3 to 4 year olds, say, no, we've done that. We've done it. You know, we want to do something new. Yeah. So one of, I think a key thing is to always do something different with the story. I mean, it may be as simple as holding up pictures when you hear the words, or doing, you know, or doing an action to go with something, you know, whatever it is, but something that sort of keeps that kind of spark. It to you, as you're not. I'd give you a flavour of it.
Sure.
Because it is, it is a rhyming story actually. So that's.
Hold it up.
Yeah. It's just beautiful. And I wonder, could we ask just Giselle?
Yes, come and tell us how you drew the pictures.
Would you mind?
Yes.
Because this is.
I'm a little shy, okay? So, you're asking me about how I drew the pictures?
And how you worked with Carol to kind of bring it all together. Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
Well, I have to say that I learned a lot from Carol. Well, each project that I make, I learn a lot from the authors. Well, I'm very inspired by Dr. Seuss.
YouTube.
No, I'm gonna get